Somehow you guys really like us, and that has turned into over 15,000 subscribers at this point. So we figured, you know, we should do a little celebration, and we decided to do a Q&A because that's what all the YouTubers do nowadays, I feel. I don't know, they've always been doing it. So we asked you guys on our YouTube community and in our Discord server, what do you want to know about us? Could be game dev related, could be anything else really. There's some really weird ones in there as well. And we're just gonna go through them. I don't know if we're gonna be able to cover all of them. That's up to editing Marnix and like however long this video is gonna be and like how much we get sidetracked, because if our tier lists are anything to go by, we can get sidetracked very easily.
It's always Marnix's fault.
No, it's your fault too. And I'm here with Thomas as well, because there are some of the more technical questions as well that I have no clue about. So I got someone who knows a little bit more, at least, just a tiny bit about programming, who can help me out as well. And I think we should start with a question of Dobrx on that technical regard. And that is, to what degree should you worry about keeping your code clean and trying to keep the number of hard references down?
It depends on your team size, it depends on the project you're working on, depending on where you are in your project lifecycle.
We need short answers.
If you're a solo indie game developer, this might be controversial. I wouldn't give a shit about it. Just make sure you write code quickly and efficiently, and just try to keep in mind that down the road, if you need to extend a system, that it's ready for that. That's the only thing you should worry about. References itself, they are bad in coding practices, but if you're a solo indie game developer, I think it's way more important to write functional code than to write clean code. Yeah. Hot take.
Okay, next up is Alexa ETF. What do you recommend indie devs do to manage their motivation levels? There are days where I feel exhausted for no apparent reasons, and some days I can go 24/7 without issue.
You answer,
I mean, I can go for it. I go 24/7 always. That's not the way to do it. I think there's a video I made a while back, something about why you're not doing game dev or something. And it's like capital Y. And the concept of that entire video is that motivation, I don't really like as much, but it's having a strong reason to exist and a strong reason to want to make your game that drives me. Like, am I motivated to work on sound effects or whatever? No, but it needs to be done. And I think because I have that why of why am I doing this, because this is my job. I want to prove the world wrong that like game dev can be a thing, because motivation can help, but it's not something you can depend on.
Yeah, motivation is temporary, dedication is what you actually need.
And bite me is eternal.
And also a thing that really helps me personally, aside from drinking way too much energy drink, is I really like the idea of an accountability partner. I have the luck that I have Marnix and William with me, mostly Marnix because William is a bit more relaxed. But Marnix has high demands, I have high demands, and this way we keep each other accountable to work, because if we don't make progress quickly, one of us is going to say, what the fuck you doing, mate? And that's something that even if you are a solo indie game developer, just find someone that can hold you accountable for your game, even if it's not working on it.
We have a Discord where you can ask for people to be your accountability partner, link in description. Next up is another question for you, Thomas. It's from PG Skep, and it's, I found that coding data structures, UI, math and physics from scratch were very beneficial for the speed of the development of my games. Do you have any libraries that you've coded yourself that often are like the foundation of your game? Maybe audio or graphics?
Yes. So after we made Forge Industry, we made the strive to create our custom Unity packages. So basically we host it also on our GitHub, and we can start using the Unity package manager. And we have there some things that we often use. For example, helper methods, extension methods. Now with Songs of Everjade, we've written code that William and I already discussed, that once Songs of Everjade is done, we want to like extract from there, make it more generic, and put it again in our generic library. And I think this is also something, a lot of games do a lot of things in the same way. So once you tackle the problem once and you find a good solution, because there are quite, for example, I'll be concrete. In Forge Industry, we had a different way of handling options than we have in Songs of Everjade. If we are, for example, happy with how we tackled it in Songs of Everjade, no need to reinvent the wheel, just take that code, make it generic, put it in your generic library and move on. But only do it if you're happy. And I also wouldn't worry about it if it's your first game. So just, like always, focus on making your game first. After you've made your game and you're like in the post-launch phase and you don't have to spend all your days like fixing bugs, then I would think, how can I make use of the code that I've already written in another game again? But first, focus on your game. Then, of course, you can make generic libraries.
Next up, we have Sharp Dressed Bear. How do you come up with the game concepts for Forge Industry and Songs of Everdate? Do you just come up with a bunch of different ideas and then you choose whichever you feel most interesting, or how do you do it marketing-wise, preparing stuff? I think for Forge Industry, it was very simple. It's like, we're good at programming and we need to learn Unity. Let's take something that is, we could almost put Forge Industry in like a business application front end and like have it as a program instead of a game. So that's why we went for Forge Industry really. Songs of Everjade, I think we didn't like overcomplicate the market research either yet, because I feel like we weren't good enough yet to make quality games yet. Songs of Everjade was another one of those games where we just put in the reps, we get better at game development, which we have, and then for our next games we can be like more hardcore. Of course we did like a little bit of market research, but there's no point in doing like a month of market research of why this platformer is or isn't gonna work, when in the same time you could have just started on it and found it out for yourself. For our next game that we're like going to be starting to plan soon, we are going to have like multiple ideas and then figure out, okay, what are the strengths and weaknesses of all of them?
In the past, we've always decided to make the game we really want to make. Forge Industry was something Jamie really wanted to make. Songs of Everjade is more something that Marnix wanted to make. From now on, I think it's best, since our studio has grown, like the team has gotten a lot better at making games, that we should more consider like the financial side of things, because we still have like Marnix to feed and stuff like that. So if you're like us and you want to make games, just start with things you want to gain experience, and once you're ready, you will know when you are ready yourself. Then I would also take a look into market research, because that's something we kind of neglected a lot of the time.
We did like the basics of, does this game still sell? Don't make a 2D platformer. There's no market for it. There's like a graph. I'll put it on screen of like the different genres and how much they earn on average. Don't make battle royales either. Those are horrible market research-wise, but...
Don't make multiplayer in general as your first game.
Yeah, okay, but...
Watch our tier list, or I guess.
Watch our tier lists.
Yeah, multiple. 3 genre tier lists.
Speaking of game ideas, next up we have Game Dev Journey 4231 with a question of how much of your initial idea for your games are still in the game at release?
Songs of Everjade more than Forge Industry.
Yeah. So Songs of Everjade is pretty good right now. I think that's also because it's such a short development cycle, but Forge Industry, the game design documents versus the released game,
completely different.
The core is still there of, you know, you have the buildings and you connect them with each other with routes, but that's about it. We had a point where our research tree, for example, was completely going to be different. Instead, you would invade other countries or like have trade relationships with them, and then they'd send over consultants basically who would teach you how to make their certain weapons. We did not do that. I don't know why, probably because it was too much work, or I don't know even what it shifted, but it's just not
I think there were a lot of questions on how do we like actually want to implement this, and I think we never found answers to how we wanted it to behave like exactly.
Yeah. I think Songs of Everjade is better because, once again, it's been 3 months in development, a little bit more only. So when I wrote the original game idea, it just hasn't been as much time as with Forge Industry. 18 months, that's a lot of time for your scope to drift. I think our blessings have been reworked a little bit, and I don't know. Yeah, no, actually it's been all right.
Yeah, I also think this is because Songs of Everjade is a lot more standard of a game. I think with Forge Industry we tried to do something more exotic because we wanted to have our own spin on a lot of things, while Songs of Everjade is a bit more tried and true roguelite. And there are already a lot of examples. Of course we have our unique things like the blessing system, I guess our setting, even though that's not a USP. I also think Forge Industry strayed a lot more from the path because first of all we didn't really have any experience, and also we had no experience in game design.
Yeah, we were no game designers. We just were like, guess this will work, and then we just did it. I think you should like do some planning of what should your mechanics be, but also don't write those giant game design documents, because we did that for Forge Industry. I think it's like 14 pages, which is still small-ish in the grand scheme of things.
1-page game design document. Marnix has a link.
Yeah, link down below as well. Man, we're gonna keep plugging stuff. All right, next one is from Laszlo Gaming. How much of a mistake is it that I'm not willing to budge from a certain graphical level of appearance? And these things sometimes slow down the progress of developing my game. Several years means 5 to 6 years.
So development is going slower
because you have a certain graphical standard you want to hit. 5 to 6 years is a lot of time, guys.
Honestly, I'm going to be really blunt here. I think you're doing game dev completely wrong.
Man, you just want... Please direct your hate towards him.
Yeah, I don't mean this in a bad way. Let me explain what I mean. If you're an indie game developer, I mean, 5 to 6 years, I assume it's your first game. Maybe it's not, that's also fine. But if you are working 5 to 6 years on something, it's a lot of time. If you ever want to be profitable, like I think the indie game dev dream is still quit my job and go work on indie games full time, then the 5 to 6 years is really hard to justify. I think you should first find the fun in your game. So make it white box levels for all I care and just give it to people. Find the core gameplay loop that you like. This is something that is really apparent, for example, in Songs of Everjade. We put a playtest out there that was visually like completely crap, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But that already gives us feedback and it's like, this is good, this is bad, and we can iterate. The iteration is really important. If you're working 5 to 6 years just to hit a graphical level, I think that's not really a good idea.
Yeah, I think a good way to visualize it as well, that like what we did with Songs of Everjade is, the Songs of Everjade playtest has more playtime than the Forge Industry demo. That's the playtest when the graphics were ugly as hell and it was just fun focused. I think also, I don't know if it's like a true story, but it's like you have the photography teacher or the pottery teacher, and it's like he divides the class into 2 groups. One group is, okay, you have a whole semester to work on taking 1 picture and you'll be graded on that single picture and however good it is. And then the other half is, we don't care about the quality, you just take as many as you can and I'll grade you on how many you take. By the end of the period, the people who just had the hundreds of pictures or the hundreds of pots made, they deliver better results than the people who like focus on getting 1 perfect image, because you just learn so much more by doing stuff, doing as much as possible. That's why I like don't like the indie developers who spent like multiple years on their first game. Yes, it's probably going to fail if you spend only a few months on it, but it's also probably going to fail if you spend 3 years on it. So
statistically, almost no first game ever made has a good chance of success.
Don't talk to me about Stardew Valley, please. I know.
Yeah, Eric Barone is an exception. If you know or are pretty damn sure, like 99% sure that you're going to fail, you better fail fast.
Man, we were going to make these questions shorter.
Yeah, but the people love us for giving detailed answers, I'm sure of it.
This one is from Destined. He has 3 questions, but because I like the guy, he's in our Discord a lot, we'll answer all 3 of them.
Lightning round.
Lightning round. The first one is balancing work life. How many hours do we put into our main job versus our like regular like game dev job? For me, the answer is simple. I don't have a main job anymore, so I just put all my hours into that.
Yeah, I do a 30-hour work week for my main job, and I think I do a 40-hour work week for Bite Me, if not more. There's a reason I need that energy drink.
Next up, what's our sales target for Songs of Everjade?
Oof, that's a rough one. Honestly, I don't really have a sales target. I kind of just want to beat Forge Industry in revenue. That's it.
That's what I have as well. Beat Forge Industry in revenue. The game is going to be priced lower, so we'll need to have to sell more copies. But
like double the sales for the same profit.
Yeah, but I think even with that, like we don't expect monster successes. We have the YouTube like kind of funding us still as well, and like Patreons, shout out Patreons. We also need to keep in mind, if we release Songs of Everjade in like 6 months versus 18 months for Forge Industry, that's already still more profitable for us. And then the last one is, do you ever worry that your inexperience makes you not great for giving advice despite people wanting to hear it? I guess this is more directed at me. The answer is no, because I always say this, like I really like John Carmack. He's like one of my idols, but put me in a room with him and I can't ask him anything because he is just so many leagues above me. Same with like if you put me together with Todd Howard or whatever. I have no clue what I would even ask him. Like it would be a cool experience, but they're so different to me that I can't do anything with it. Whereas I just give advice to myself 6 months ago because I know what I should have done. I know what I should have gone right. And most of you people are similar to that. You don't need to learn how to make a AAA game. You just need to learn how you can launch your first game. And I know how to do that. So I think I'm qualified enough in that regard. Next up, this was one for you again from HC Creations 9590. How do you increase your general programming knowledge?
You just program. You wanted short answers, right?
He started over 2 years ago, and like only recently he started using scripts that weren't like derivatives from mono behaviors. How, like his general programming knowledge, how would you improve that?
If you already have knowledge of the basics, so I mean object-oriented programming, things like inheritance, all those things, then I think experience is the most important thing, because over time you will make code, and like in a week or in a month or in a year, whatever, you will look back on that code and think it's shit, and you will know why it's shit. If you don't have a grasp for the basics yet, things like inheritance, like I said, for example, or polymorphism, all those things, I would probably suggest you to either take a course, university, whatever, just somewhere you can learn the basic concepts, because those things are the foundation, and once you have that foundation, all you need is to do stuff.
Next up is from Vinicius Antonio 2253. Do you guys at Bite Me Games think about opening a recruiting season or using the community to your favor? Mods, i.e. I don't know what you mean with mods. Do you mean like Discord mods, or do you mean like community workshop? In this case of community workshop, this is always so awkward when people comment this. We do have modding support for Forge Industry. You guys are like commenting sometimes like, oh, you should add like mod support because the community will really bring the game to life. If you don't have enough of a community, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
In terms of actually people working for us, I feel like it's very weird to begin with.
It's a very slippery slope. You don't have a lot of integrity if you abuse your viewers for free labor, in my opinion.
Yeah, speaking of abusing for free labor, we are getting interns soon though.
What a transition, mate.
But I think that is where it's going to end, because with interns there's still a bit of a, it's also Belgian interns.
Yeah, and we can learn them things.
Yeah, we can teach them stuff, whereas we also get a lot of people like sending us their Unity resumes. Like, oh, I can be a programmer at Bite Me. I'm sorry, but we're not going to be like needing that anytime soon. And it's also just weird. Like, you guys sometimes are like, oh, I offer to do like stuff for you for free even. And it's like, that's cool, but I feel kind of icky about it still.
Yeah.
Of just doing that. Even like Discord mods, we should do at some point. It's just, I don't know, I feel weird about it.
The benefit is we're 3 people already, so we like more easily, I guess, manage the Discord server.
It's just we're all in the same time zone.
Yeah,
So sometimes...
not for long.
Yeah.
You're going to Japan.
So yeah, we're probably not planning on getting any like Bite Me viewers to join us unless they're like interns who were already fans of Bite Me, because we get a lot of internship requests as well.
Also, if you want us to hire more people, just make sure Songs of Everjade sells millions of copies and we will expand the team. That's a pinky promise.
Next up is from Camel the Camel 794. Marketing really stresses me out as an indie, so I would like to ask, what are the most efficient marketing ways, both free and paid, aside from the usual just post your stuff everywhere?
That's a very loaded question, mate.
There is a video idea that I've been wanting to do for a long time, but it's probably never going to happen because
It will happen.
not anytime soon. That is a marketing tier list. But I asked Grzegorz this question in a recent one-on-one I had with him. And it comes down to having a demo up on your Steam page is S tier, having a pretty game is S tier, and reaching out to YouTubers or streamers or whoever and letting them play your game is S tier. And online festivals, so if something like a Steam Next Fest or something like the Yogscast's Tiny Teams, those are really good as well. Some of the other festivals are kind of crappy, such as the DreamHack Summer Expo or something. It's like 10 wishlists a day we got from it. That's not worth it, but I mean, it's free. I also asked him about paid stuff, so for example, ads, and we, at the scale that we are at, he's like, don't do ads, you're not big enough for it yet, because ads aren't just something that you can throw a bunch of money towards. Like one time we're like, oh, we're gonna put $1,000 in ads and we're gonna get 5,000 wish lists out of it or whatever. That's not how it works. You need to spend like for 3 months at a time, like $10 a day, then figure out like what kind of ads convert well and doesn't, and only after 3 months, then throw in like $1,000 at least to get that actual conversion rate. So I don't think that's worth it for us, especially if it's like your first kinds of games. You don't have that budget basically to work with, and also your game's probably gonna be too shitty, so you'll be wasting a lot of money.
Yeah, but if you want to know how we manage the advertising like experience for Songs of Everjade, just subscribe, because we'll surely make a video about it. Because we have some plans.
Yeah, we have some plans on like trying out some stuff.
We just don't know yet how it will go, so we can't say if it's good or bad advice yet, so stay tuned.
Next up is a question from DVSO2518. It's very long, but I basically just summarized it to, he has a main job and he's like, how do I make sure that once my main job is over, I don't just want to chill and not work on my game?
Okay, I think in my opinion, it's a bit of the same question as the motivation one. Just drink a lot of energy drink and find an accountability partner.
I think it comes down mainly just to having that why again, having a good drive. Just motivation alone isn't going to cut it.
You need dedication.
It's about drive, it's about power. You don't know the rap song from The Rock?
No,
Okay, well.
he's a zoomer.
Speaking of zoomers, Andre21, what do you think about the day before situation? Because it looked really good, all of the trailers and everything.
Oh.
But then the game actually released.
I mean, yeah, this is, yeah. I don't know what to say about it, but it's shit.
But it's also marketing genius. Because this is something...
Marketing is king. You don't need a good game, you just need good advertising. Woo!
This exactly, because, for example, Among Us VR, the game didn't exist when the trailer was made for it. They just threw something together in Unity, like I think it was Unity probably, that just looked like the game, but they had zero actual mechanics and code implemented. So I think the day before had a similar issue where they were like, let's just see if this is market viable. They made a trailer for it. Turns out it was. Okay, shit, now we have to make that game actually. And I think that's where it went wrong. Of course, there's whole conspiracy theories about mismanagement of funds and whatever. I don't really know those.
Yeah, also things like that they are actually a studio that did it before or will do it again,
they'll
or
like just
branding and what,
change their name and do it again. I don't think that's really something that we should look at as indies, but it's a way, you know, doing that trailer first to find out that, hey, is this game even gonna be viable? I think if you're a solo developer, this is like a strategy you're too small for. But if you're running like a mid-size indie studio,
define mid-size for the people.
If you have actual artists, so you have basically like 5 people at least in the team, I think you can like try out something like this, like make a very simple trailer and then just put it on Steam and then see what goes along with it, because trailers are really good for marketing as well. Next up, we have a question from Chen Ash that's more directed to me, I think. Am I gonna be making videos about being a YouTuber and what does it require basically for my job, like making these videos? I don't think I'll make like a dedicated, like, this is what I do as a game dev YouTuber video. I'm planning at some point to make a day in the life video where I'll like cover it a bit more, but it comes down to I make games half of the time and then the other half I make the videos about it. So we do 2 uploads a week, which is a pretty brutal upload schedule, but it has allowed me, going back to that story of the photos or the pots, like because we've made over 100 videos at this point, I can really make them very fast. I don't need to script that much anymore, so I can just turn on the camera, talk to the wall for a bit. Generally, the raw footage of a video you see is about 20 minutes, then like cut down, it's like between 12 to 15 minutes. I can go through the edit in about 2-3 hours if it's not like a tier list or a video like this, then it goes pretty quickly. And then, you know, our thumbnails, they're kind of shit, but they also only take 5 minutes for me to make. I just make a prompt in Midjourney or like a low poly stylized something related to the video. I have a Photoshop template, I throw it in, and that's it. I try to also batch the YouTube videos, so we have a backlog, so I can do like 2-3 videos together, and then I don't have to worry about it for a week, and I can just focus on the game. Next is a question from Edrorium. Why do so many great games, such as Celeste or Stardew Valley or Undertale, have horrible Steam pages? Now, I haven't actually looked at them that much, but you know, you have Chris Zukowski's all about like, oh, you need to get the GIFs on the Steam page and things like that. I think it's just because those games have transcended the need for a Steam page. You don't go to the Celeste Steam page to find out if the game's for you. You go to the Celeste Steam page to buy it and nothing else, because your friend tells you, oh, I've played this game, it's great, you should get it as well. I think I bought Stardew Valley just because so many people online were like, this is the best game ever. I never even looked at the store page.
Yeah, and I also think most of the games you mentioned are from a different era of indie game development. Right now, every year, like the amount of indie game developers increase, the amount of indie games released also increase. So the competition is just a lot more fierce. Like, first of all, you're not only competing with indies, but you're also competing with The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt for $9.99 that is cheaper than your indie game, but has like 9 out of 10, a lot more content, no matter what you say. So I think as time goes on, yeah, you have a lot more competition just because you're not only competing with current games, also past games, AAA games in sale. So I think the longer time goes on, you need a more sophisticated Steam page, and the most games you mentioned are already quite old by gaming standards.
Next up is from Kingward. This is a question that I also saw on some of our tier lists, is what do you think about a Roblox as a game engine? So we kind of mentioned this concept in one of our game genre tier lists, another engine tier list of like modding existing games. I think it's pretty good. Similar, Fortnite has it as well now, where you can make custom maps. You can even get epic mega grants for making Fortnite maps.
That's quite epic.
Oh. I think they're really good to get started with. Another game, for example, Unturned, started as a Roblox mod as far as I remember. The issue is getting scale and getting marketability is hard. What Unturned, for example, did is their V1 was in Roblox indeed, but then they switched to Unity. Once they found out that their game concept was viable, that's when they realized, oh, we're gonna switch. I would put it in B tier.
Yeah, something like that is fine because the games, the specific examples you mentioned at least, they have a pretty young audience. So I think if you ever want to make money, it's a bit harder. Like they don't...
Yeah, Roblox has like some monetization system, but it's still very suboptimal.
I think it's fine, at least when you're getting started, to get to learn the ins and outs of game dev.
Lou Bao Studios, how do you keep your hair so luscious and vibrant? Well, I have like one shampoo that I've been using since I was born basically, and any other shampoo, my hair does not get this soft and luscious. So I just keep using that one. Also, get regular haircuts. I know they're like 20 bucks. Just get them like once every month or something. Don't let them grow out completely. Or if you're really cheap, go to Gamescom and Unity has a booth there where you can get free haircuts.
And tattoos.
But yeah, that's it. There's no big secret. Also, I use like wax. Don't expect to just roll out of bed and look this pretty. You need to put some effort into it.
Why are you all boosting his ego? Why?
I have a question for you again. I was thinking about this, but I couldn't find one really. From David J3048, what tools in our workflow have we changed throughout using ByteMe really? Because we started with GitLab for our main thing. We still use GitLab. Oh, we started our documentation process. We started with OneNote. OneNote is garbage. Then
that's a bit extreme, but it's not ideal.
Compared to the competition of like Notion and things like that, OneNote is garbage. Now we've switched to like a wiki, I think, but that's also because we're like a bigger team already. If you're solo, having a wiki is overkill. I think having a Notion page is a very good blend. Did we change something else?
I don't think so.
We removed some stuff as well. We stopped testing. Kinda. One other thing we did for a while, but we stopped with it, was time tracking.
Oh yeah.
I think we did it for like 2 months.
Yeah, but it was mostly for like third parties that we were planning ahead of it.
We had applied for a grant and they were like, oh, you need to do time tracking. So we're like, okay, we'll do it. If you're like time tracking, at least for us, we just work. It's like, we don't need to know exactly how many hours we spent.
I don't think I want to know.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty rough with me some weeks as well, like the total hours worked. That is something that, once again, don't have too many tools. Just make games. Don't have like 17 different project management tools.
Yeah, if you want a really concrete answer, in my opinion, use Unity, use Blender, use Sprite if you're making a pixel art game, Audacity probably for your audio, like tweaking a lot of sound effects, and I think that's about it.
Notion for documentation. Yeah, it's pretty good. We don't use it for documentation, but I use Notion myself.
Yeah, just try to keep it simple.
Robbie Scherpereel asks, how do you get good game ideas? As a programmer, I don't feel like I'm that much of a designer really. So where do you get the idea to make a game?
I don't think we have good game ideas.
Yeah, not yet at least. I don't think we're the best to answer here. Just make something. Songs of Everjade is very basic. It's just a game that already exists. The formula is tried and true. We just gave it a little spin. That's it. Don't overcomplicate it. Your first games are gonna suck anyway. Next up is A9YLE. Who picked the company name and why?
Okay.
This is a story time moment.
Yeah, this is a story time moment. I picked it because before I adopted these fellas, I was working with another friend of mine and we created an app on their mobile phone that was called ByteMe. And the concept of ByteMe was to meet up with strangers. So for example, if you're in a country and you're having lunch, like for example in Antwerp or something, you could say, hey, I want to have lunch somewhere, and someone else could like join you and you could go have lunch together. So you won't be alone, you can get to know more people, a bit like that. It's a bit of a dating app. And then with the same person, we started making a game. There's also a video on the channel at the first game, why it sucked, Sled. We're like, okay, we're just going to keep our name because a couple of people will recognize it. So we make ByteMe games. No, ByteMe Studios. Yeah, ByteMe Studios, sorry. And then later on, when I adopted these fellas, like I made the biggest mistake of my life. We were looking for a domain.
Yeah, there was no bytemestudios.com, only bytemegames.com.
Yeah, so we rebranded.
Yeah, that's basically it. Don't overcomplicate the name.
Yeah, but it's a good name. I know everyone is saying, why didn't you use a Y, so for byte, because bytes? And I'm like, that was never the intention to begin with.
Next up, oh, this is a familiar name. William van Bouwel asks, waifu industry when? This is, I put it in, not just William asked this. A lot of people had like similar questions, so we just grouped them together.
I cannot legally answer this question yet because of our massive publisher deal.
So, we are very conflicted at Bite Me Games.
Yeah.
We kind of want to make an adult-only game. It's probably not going to be the next one. But we kind of do want to make one.
Just because I can swear, right? Just because it sells. It always hurts me to see like mediocre games at best. I'm being very generous with that term. Yeah. Selling a ton, having thousands and thousands upon wishlists. I already pitched the idea to Marnix, like if we don't grow rapidly enough, we quit Bite Me Games. And we just create sell-out studios. And we make adult-only games, NFT games, whatever, and we probably break in a lot more money. But for some reason, we all have integrity, so that kind of sucks.
Yeah, I think the one thing we have is we could make an adult-only game that's also fun to play.
Yeah.
The problem we have is we can't get the art right now. That's the main thing holding us back. If you're like a smart artist and you want to make a game with us that is just adult-only garbage, send us an email, I guess. But that is the main thing holding us back. As for waifu industry specifically, I don't think we're going to be remaking Forge Industry as an adult-only game.
No?
But we do want to do something with it. Also just because nobody else on YouTube is doing it.
So
it would be a flex.
It would be pretty amazing. I just want to go to a gaming convention and like talk to people and they're like, oh, what are you like working on? And they're working on like some VR game or whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm making a game where you're like this cute little girl who just gets like smashed every 5 seconds.
It would be an experience, I guess.
So stay tuned, I guess. Maybe next year, like 2025, we'll get around to it.
Go full degenerate mode.
Next up is PunPlanet9730. How much do I bench? I bench 4 times 95. I don't do 1 rep maxes. Next up, we have...
Is that your all-time maximum or what you benching right now?
I think that's like...
I hope I'm not throwing you under the bus.
No, it's... I bench a little bit less now because I had a few weeks where I didn't, but it's my all-time max-ish.
I mean, he has some cannons.
And it's for free. More on OnlyFans. Link down below. There is no link, I'm sorry.
But there is a Patreon you can click.
Next up we have Lundis gamedev, and this was once again one of those questions that we got multiple times. It's like, how do we manage our planning, our project structure, Kanban boards, whatever? Maybe we'll go in like a 30-second answer, but this is something that we're going to make an in-depth video with. I think in like the next few weeks it should come out, where we just go through how we plan our entire studio, basically. You can now give the 30-second answer.
Oh, okay. We basically use a GitLab with our issue board. We create milestones, like every month is a milestone for us. This is basically that you have a sprint, but we just took it for a month. Then we see what we want to finish in that month, like description, pure text, like this is what we want to get ready. Then we fill those things with issues related to that. And then we just work our asses off.
Don't overcomplicate it, once again. I see people who are like going too deep into like the issues. We have no descriptions often for like our issues, just the title, like 1 sentence. Yeah. And only if it's like more complex or needs more nuance, then we like write out the full description.
If you're solo, you don't need description. If you're in a small team like us, if you have good communication, even then you also don't need a description, in my opinion.
And then the last one, we're gonna end on a banger. From Royal Sexy, how much do we work together / apart? We both look dead equally in these videos.
I'm so happy you say this, man. For like, some guy, someday, commented that I look dead on the inside, or that my dog died or something.
I mean like eyebags dead.
Yeah, I know, but someone said I look dead on the inside and that my dog died and so on. And he's like
weird vibes.
Yeah, and he's like, you look so weird. And I'm so happy you say both. You really made my day. So what was the question?
How much do we work together versus apart?
Okay, like 99% apart.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean, like apart, like physically or like working on the same things. Usually the only times we work together is when I'm trying to figure out like recently was like sound effects. There was like a custom implementation for sound effects and I couldn't figure it out. And it's like, yo, you have like 3 minutes to explain to me why this isn't working. But it's not that we actively sit together and work on the same things because he's a programmer. I do stuff that's not programming.
Yeah. It's basically, we don't really do pair programming. We do merge request reviews. That's how we get to know each other's code. And aside from that, it's basically everyone works on their own. This is the way you make the most progress, and I think in our culture, progress is very important.
Yeah.
And if you mean physically, then it's like
When we make these videos.
when we make these videos, or when we like celebrate something like a birthday or something.
The work never stops.
Exactly. And probably even on that birthday party, 99% of the talking points are Bite Me games.
We have our priorities straight. Anyways, those were all of the questions that you guys submitted. I don't know how many we actually covered because I'll have to be editing this. I don't know how long this video is. It's gonna be long otherwise. So
Our video.
that's not gonna be the case. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all of your support watching the previous videos. 15,000 people is a lot of people. I hope that at